Hey everybody, my name's Ed. Okay, so this is going to be part two of a belated comic book review video. So basically, I'm going to try to catch everybody up on the comics that I've been reading for the last, let's say, at least 3 weeks or so. And it's going to be kind of a long video, so I appreciate everybody's patience. And seriously, let's just jump right into it. Cheers.
On October 28, 2006, Scott Davis enters a packed courtroom to stand trial for murder.
This case had it all. Well, good.
The Hard Place. This is a new Image comic by Doug Wagner and Nick Ramel. This is issue 1. I have issue 3. I don't have issue 2, so I'm waiting until I get issue 2 before I read issue 3. Basically, it's pretty much standard so far, just based on this issue. So far, standard crime drama setup. It's the whole sort of trope of guy commits a crime, goes away, comes back, and then against his will, more or less, he's being drawn back into the old lifestyle that he's trying to leave behind. Not a bad setup as far as the first issue is concerned. I really like this art. But like I said, it really feels like every third crime movie that you've ever seen. So that's fine, but that's basically what it is. Spirits of Vengeance #1, written by Victor Gisler, and the art is by, I'm going to mess up his name, David Baldion. Basically, this is more or less a getting the band together issue, and it mostly just focuses on Johnny Blaze and Hellstrom. I thought it was we don't get to see Blade until the last page, and Satana isn't in it at all. I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay. I guess that's what I want to say. The writing was okay. The script was okay. The art is fine. It's probably just a little too slick for this type of comic, but I thought it was decent. Okay, so Avengers #11, written by Al Ewing and the artist by Paco Diaz. Basically, the story is Cannonball has been lost in space. He's been captured by aliens, and on the alien planet, they stick him into this environment where it's made to resemble, small town America. And obviously the aliens are playing different roles and stuff like that, and you can guess by the cover, Small Town America is basically Archie comics. And there's other stuff where the other US Avengers have to go find him. There's an involvement with Smasher, who is, I don't think he's married to Smasher, but Smasher is, but they do have a child together and whatnot, so they've all teamed up to try to find him, and that's basically the setup of this particular issue. I pretty much enjoyed it. I like the art. There's lots of humor. I feel it was really well written. It was really well crafted. There's some funny bits where the Avengers meet Hang on. Anyway, I found this issue of US Avengers quite enjoyable. I thought it was fun and lighthearted. Lots of humor. It was tightly plotted, and I liked the dialogue. Look at here. This one comes with a Marvel value stamp. I think this is Punisher. Yes, this is the Punisher. For people who don't remember, back in the 70s, in the mid 70s, Marvel used to have these things called Marvel value stamps, and they were part of the comic, and you were supposed to like kind of cut them out and collect them and stuff like that. And they gave you like a stamp book that you could, put them on and things like that. But they were, yeah, but like I said, they were part of the comic, and you would actually like have to cut them out of the comic and damage the comic or whatever. So it's a good idea for this one, as they've brought them back for their whole sort of legacy thing, to make them these kind of like inserts or whatever. Back to the story. Cannonball has had a relationship with this character Smasher, and they have a kid together. What's interesting is Smasher is part of the Imperial Guard, and the Imperial Guard is basically Marvel's parody of the Legion of Superheroes, and Smasher is... I'm trying to think which character Smasher is. Is it Mon-El? Another phone call. Okay. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Imperial Guard. Marvel parodies of DC characters. Anyway, like I said, it was a fun issue. You had, you've got that going on. There's a pretty funny thing going on where the US Avengers run into these characters flying around in outer space, and they're like 1930s gangsters or whatever. In the end, here's everybody on the alien planet, kind of looking like Archie's characters. So and when you get to the end, where you kind of figure out, or they kind of reveal why these outer space characters kind of look like I said, humans. It kind of makes sense. And yeah, I pretty much enjoyed this particular issue. It was a lot of fun. I have to say, in my older days, or my older years, or right now, I should say, I'm actually really fascinated with like Archie and Archie comics and things like that. So like, I really enjoyed it. It was like a fun issue for me. Okay, so Luke Cage 166, written by David Walker, and the art is by Guillermo Sana. I felt that the last arc was, the story I thought was okay, but I really didn't like the art. I thought the art brought it down. It was very stiff looking. And the artist on here, on this one, I think basically improves the comic by leaps and bounds. It's just a lot more skilled, a lot more functional. The anatomy is better. The panel-to-panel flow is better. Just everything about the art is a step up, in my opinion. Basically, this issue is just set up. He's in this small town, and he's speaking to this woman who needs help. He gets attacked by the cops, who arrest him on a trumped-up charge, and he's taken to jail. So that's basically all that happens in this particular issue. Like I said, the art has improved to the point where, yeah, I'm willing to give the story another chance. So I'll be sticking with it for maybe the next couple issues at least. High Five Fight Club #2 by written by Carly Houston, and pencils are Nina Vakula, and the inks are Irene Flores, I guess. I find the art and the visuals very, very charming. Basically, the story revolves around this girl. She works at this record store, this record store. She seems to have a crush on one of the other girls that works there, and she finds out that in their spare time, when the girls aren't selling records and hosting bands and stuff like that, they go around, I guess, solving mysteries and things like that. And this particular mystery has something to do with a singer who was supposed to come to town and do an in-store at their venue, and she went missing. So now they've kind of decided that they need to take on the case. Like I said, the comic is pretty sweet. It's pretty charming. Not very heavy reading or anything like that. The only thing I think is kind of odd or anything like that is, do kids still think it's cool to work at record stores these days? You know what I mean? It seems kind of old media, for lack of a better word, you know what I mean? But then again, hey, comics are old media too, so. But okay, High Five Fight Club. Noble #6, written by Brandon Thomas and illustrated by Roger Robinson. I know I've spoken about this comic book before. It's pretty much what a lot of people wish Marvel and DC were doing more of. You've got this black male character who's, big powerhouse, super strong, flight, energy, interesting, or I should say a diverse supporting cast as well. And everybody's pretty much ignoring this comic book because it's not coming out from Marvel and DC. So basically in this issue, I guess it's the setup to the next arc. The main character is this ex-Special Forces guy. They've run experiments on him. They've given him superpowers, but they've also wiped his memory. So his wife, who's also some sort of badass agent or whatever, has she's on his trail. She's trying to find him. She's running into these different people. There's the mad scientist that's done the experiments. He's up to something where it looks like he's doing experiments on other people. We get to see there's some other shadow government type person who's trying to manipulate things behind the scene. So it's a real interesting setup. It looks like they're taking their time about telling the story and whatnot. So it's a real interesting read. Not 100% groundbreaking, but it has been enjoyable so far. Aquaman #29, written by Dan Abnett. And the art is by Steven Sijic. I think I've talked about this comic book before. Really enjoying it. Just in a nutshell, Aquaman has been removed from his throne. He's gone to lower quarters. He's formed an alliance with Dolphin and the other people who are kind of like the working class or lower class people there. Meanwhile, Mira's trying to find him. She has enlisted the aid of Tempest, who was the first Aqua lad. And yeah, it's just a fun and involving story. It's actually everything that I wish was going on in Black Panther comic book, but I'm not getting that out of the Black Panther comic book, but it's here in the Aquaman comic book. And yeah, so basically, Aquaman's coming to kick your ass, Aqualad is coming to kick your ass, and Mira's coming to kick your ass. So you're gonna get your ass kicked by like all the Aqua people. So. Okay, so I got this at the grocery store a little bit earlier, and I just thought I'd try it just for the heck of it. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like a girly drink almost, but I just wanted to see how it tastes. So, cheers. Okay, so not bad, not bad. American Way number 3, written by John Ridley, and the art is by George Genty, and the penciling is John, I'm not sure how to say his name, Livesey. This is a very, very interesting comic in my mind, and I think it deals with politics and superheroes in a lot smarter way than certain comic books I could think of right now. Basically, well, first of all, the comic book is a sequel to a series that came out some years ago called The American Way, and was basically, that story was about a superhero team back in the 60s and kind of the fallout they had to deal with when they added their first African American member. So this series is set in the early 70s, so you still had the fallout from the 60s cultural revolution and political turmoil and things like that going on. The team is broken up, and most of the story so far focuses on 3 people who were members of the team. You have the African American hero, who's kind of gone back to the old neighborhood. He's trying to fight crime and things, but he's torn because while half the people appreciate that he's a black superhero, other half of people think he's working for the cops and he's a sellout to the establishment, things like that. You have another character called Amber Waves. She was kind of the young, blonde, innocent character of the team formerly, but now she's kind of joined forces with this group of, I guess you would call them domestic terrorists. They were kind of in the vein of the Weathermen. And then you have this character who's Southern Belle, was that her name? I can't remember what her superhero name was right this second. She's kind of retired from superheroes. She's married to a politician. That person is kind of getting out of the game, so she's going to run for office, and she's kind of running on this platform of traditional values and return to law and order and that sort of thing. And it's a very, very interesting comic. You get everybody's different points of view. You get the points of view of people around them. And I just think it's really solidly written. It's very thought-provoking in a good way. And like I said, it's not as black and white as you see other comics that deal with politics. You know, not everybody's 100% good, not everybody's 100% evil. The characters themselves are questioning they're questioning their actions, and are they doing the right thing? If they're doing the right thing, are they going about it the right way? So very, very, like I said, very thought-provoking in the best possible way, I think. Interesting art, not mind-blowing, but there's enough individual style to it that kind of draws me in. The layouts are really clean. Storytelling's functional. So for the most part, it really works for me. Basically, this deals with one of the black superheroes' former acquaintances saying, well, we need to track down Amber Waves. She's doing all kinds of hijinks. And most of it's been vandalism, but there's the idea that somebody died, and so now they want to like bring her in. You also have Southern Belle saying how she's a bad person. You also have here's another one of the radicals who is Asian, and her dad kind of participated in, propaganda for the states for the old group, where he's playing this kind of, semi-racial caricature of himself, and she's really upset about that, and that's why she's kind of joined the radical group. So yeah, really solid writing, very intriguing, and like I said, a lot more mature take on politics and superheroes. Paper Girls, number 17. Talked about this comic book before, really enjoying it. We are at a point now where this lady, without spoiling too much, gives us more, us and the girls, of course, more information about the whole nature of time travel and why various people are going back and forth through the future, and how the girls kind of just sort of got sucked into the whole time stream folding and all that sort of stuff. There's a semi-interesting revelation. It's a pretty funny cliffhanger. So yeah, Paper Girls, solid work, continues to be enjoyable. Mr. Miracle number 4, written by Tom King, and the art is by Mitch Grrl. Very interesting comic book. I know it's gotten lots of good reviews. This is another one of these things where it's as much about the storytelling as it is the story. Basically, what this issue has to deal with is Orion, who is the ruler of New Genesis now, has come to Mr. Miracle's home. He lives with his wife, Big Barda, and basically they're putting him on trial. And that's it. I could say that as far as what happens, in a more basic comic book style, the plot probably could have been done in maybe half the issue. But like I said, it's very much the use of the panel grids, the pacing, the dialogue. It's very much about the mood and the atmosphere, and getting a reaction out of the reader using that method, I guess. I'm not articulate. I've been drinking pomegranates. Sorry. But yeah, it's very much about the mood and atmosphere and the storytelling techniques as much as it's about the actual plot. And I also think there's this whole subtext about, I don't want to say midlife crisis, but there's a certain sort of adult in you going on here, where it's very much about Mr. Miracle is at a certain point of his life. His job is what it is. His relationship with his wife is what it is. His career and his responsibilities are what they are. But at the same time, he's sort of questioning those things, and not in a overly emotional way, but in a very sort of moody, kind of introspective way. So a really interesting comic. I might switch to trades after issue 6, not because I think there's anything wrong with the comic, just because, finances and stuff like that. But I think when it's all said and done, it's probably going to be one of the better reviewed comics of this time right now. So, yeah, if that makes any sense. Grrl Scouts Magic Socks number 6. This is the end of this arc. It's weird, it's crazy, it's punk rock, it's hip hop, it's psychedelic, It's indie. It's artsy fartsy. It's zany. It's kooky. And for the most part, I liked it. So there. Okay, next is Ragman #1 and #2. This comic book came out right at the right time for me because I've been kind of interested in the Ragman character for a little while now, and I've been trying to kind of like learn a little bit more about the character and get some of the earlier appearances. I have one of the miniseries from the 90s. I know there's another one I don't have yet. I know he appeared in the early 2000s in something something that was going on, but I do have a few of the like 70s issues with that Joe Kubert art, right? So like, you know, when I found out that this was the new series coming, I'm like, oh yes, got to get into it, you know. So I for the most part like it. I'm into it. Basically, they've tried to update the origin a little bit. The old origin had something to do with him and his dad running a pawn shop, and then the mob wanted the pawn shop gone or whatever, and his dad and these three guys who were hanging out in front of the store were like some winos or something, and then we find out that these guys were like Green Berets or whatever. And let's see here, when the mob comes down there to fight to fight the guy and his dad and to get you guys get this pawn shop out of here because we're taking over the neighborhood, the winos jump into the fight, and because they're let's put it this way, what happens is somehow an electrical wire what the fuck is going on here with this visual here? Oh, that's weird. I'm hoping that is weird. What's going on here? Yeah, I don't know what happened there a second ago. Technical difficulties. Anyway, in the old origin, basically, an electrical wire hits the guy, him, his dad, and the three winos who are Green Berets, and he somehow gains all of their fighting skill or whatever. This was a little bit different. They're making it a little bit more supernatural, and he's hearing voices of his special forces buddies. Also, there are these demon type characters floating around, and he's going to like therapy trying to figure out everything. At first he thinks he's just going through post-traumatic stress and he's feeling guilty because all of his buddies died or whatever, but we're slowly learning that there's more to it than just that. So yeah, I like it. I'm enjoying it. I kind of wish he did have his old cape and hood that was made of old quilts or whatever, but the new thing they're doing with them, I'm not bothered by. So yeah, I really like it. Punisher Platoon from Marvel's Max line. I have #1 and #2. Basically, these are the stories of Frank Castle before he became a Punisher and he was still in Vietnam. It's written by Garth Ennis and the artist by Gordon Parlov. I enjoyed it. Basically, what the premise is a reporter has gotten together various guys from the Punisher's old squad, and he basically is, trying to get a little information out of him. He's writing some story or whatever. They're a little bit reluctant to talk at first until they kind of realize, I should say, that the reporter already kind of knows a lot already about Frank Castle and what happened over in Nam, and really just wants them to fill in a few gaps or whatever. For the most part, I really enjoyed the story. It's pretty much a straight up war story. I don't know if Marvel would actually publish something like this if it wasn't already connected to one of their superhero comics. Like it's hard for me to imagine they might be doing, I take that back. I was about to say it's hard for me to imagine they're going to do a grim and gritty version of Captain Savage and the Fighting Leathernecks or whatever, but they did do that Fury Max that was pretty much Max Nick Fury through the years from World War II to Korea to Nam to El Salvador and Nicaragua and things like that. But yeah, solid writing, solid art. I like the kind of I guess you want to say non-romanticized version that we're getting here. It's interesting that and it also kind of includes the point of view of some Viet Cong guys, while at the same time presenting Frank Castle as a sympathetic character. I'd almost argue that in this story, Frank Castle's actually a more relatable and sympathetic character than Garth Ennis usually writes him when he does one of his Punisher stories. But again, really solid comic, well put together. The art's good, the dialogue's good, the script's good, the plot's good. I would also recommend, if you haven't read it, try to get their version of Fury Max, because that's a really good story as well. So, alrighty. Genius Cartel number 1, 2, and 3, written and drawn by, the writers are Mark Baranardin and Adam Freeman, and the artist is Rossi Campi. Kind of an interesting comic book. Basically, the premise is, and I guess this is a sequel to an earlier miniseries. You have this young girl, African American, kind of a strategical genius, and I guess or child prodigy or whatever. And I guess in the previous story, it had something to do with her kind of leading revolt about the police and initiating a gang truce or something like that. But in this series, the government has kind of taken notice of her, and they want her to come to their academy or program where they train other young people who exhibit certain gifts. But it turns out they want these kids to be part of their little special ops groups and things, and task force and things like that. And so I guess for this one, they want her to kind of take down, I guess, a guy who's the head of a drug cartel. But part of the program, there's some shady stuff going on. One of the other kids gets murdered. Nobody really quite knows what happens. The program's trying to cover up and say it's a suicide. She knows it's not a suicide. And then when they go out on the mission to stop the drug dealer or whatever, she kind of goes rogue and tries to free these girls who are being held as, I guess, hookers or sex slaves or something like that. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. It's an interesting plot. The art is kind of sketchy and scratchy, so it's not really my thing, but it's good enough where, for me personally, just on a subjective level, it's not distracting. But I kind of do wish the art was a little bit tighter. And also, I kind of wish the main character was a little bit more likable. And I get she's supposed to have this kind of tough chick, attitude, don't mess with me, I'm smarter than all you guys, alpha female thing going on. Um, but yeah, it doesn't work entirely. You're not necessarily endeared to her as much as you're like, yeah, this character's kind of a bitch. And not like an entertaining bitch, just kind of a bitch. So okay. I don't know. Do we want to say cheers for like energy drinks? Mm. Cheers. Wildstorm number 7 and number 8, written by Warren Ellis, and the art is by John Davis Hunt. I've been enjoying this comic. I'm sure I've mentioned it before. I find the art kind of stiff looking, but not so much to discourage me from reading it. The things that are going on with the story I find very intriguing. Basically, it's a reworking of a lot of the Wildstorm characters from a decade ago. A lot of things are blended here with characters who have appeared in The Authority and Wildcats and a few other things. And we're getting some of the characters are pretty similar to how they were before. Other characters are completely different. But I like the whole sort of blending of espionage, intrigue, corporate espionage, and science fiction. And it's really, really interesting. It's more, I don't think there's one central character. I think the closest we have to a reader identification character is probably the engineer. The engineer. But yeah, each issue we get to see something different and crazy going on with all these different characters and how they all relate to each other, and how they're all kind of butting heads and everybody's got their own agenda. In this issue, we're introduced to John Colt. I believe in the previous universe, he was more kind of a Superman / Doc Savage archetype. If you remember, what was it, Change or Die? The Change or Die storyline from The Authority from the mid-'80s, written by Warren Ellis again. Here he is more of a weird special agent who has some slightly above normal abilities, and he's kind of has a kind of snarky, cocky attitude or whatever. But a lot of Warren Ellis's characters are all cocky and full of themselves as well. But in this issue, we're introduced to this character here, who's a doctor who I think is a combination of a couple other Warren Ellis characters, blending the Doctor and Swift or whatever. This one I actually kind of like a lot. You have this kind of crazy, it's a real weird, trippy, crazy issue here where we're introduced to her by this character who I don't think is really anybody. I think it's just a storytelling thing to get us to meet her. And like I said, it's some sort of therapy session which devolves into a spacey dream sequence. And that character kind of runs into the brand new Jenny Sparks character. So, yeah, I think it's like really interesting and fun and intriguing. I want to see how things turn out. Obviously, it's already planned to go at least 24, 25 issues. So, yeah, I'm on board for the duration. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna cut this video off right here. Thanks for watching. Thanks to everybody that made it through the whole thing, and everybody have a great day. Ice Cube says hi.
To David's house on Monday night with one of the guns he had stolen.
Okay, you just have no idea how many times I have to like cut stuff out of this particular video. Okay. Cheers. You know what? Anyway. Cheers. I'm also cooking in the background, so that's another reason why I'm really distracted between the phone calls and people trying to talk to me and me just screwing up and stuff like that. So bye everybody, have a good day.